I applied to Oxford from a very traditional school, and they wanted me to do history, and I wanted to do history, but I had some parental pressure to do law. And so I went to Lady Margaret Hall, because at that time I could only go to one of the 5 women's colleges, and that was a very good college for history, but I ended up doing law. When I was at Oxford, I met my husband, which was the main thing it gave me, I suspect, apart from studying law. I was there from 1972 until 1975, so there were really not very many women around. There were probably 9 men to every 1 woman. That was tough, and we were, I think, really, to some extent, second-class citizens, but we did have a few champions who taught us and taught us well, and in the end it has stood me in good stead, but I do think life for women in Oxford has improved immeasurably now. So in my 3rd year, Anne Kennedy came along as my tutor, and she really rescued me because previously I had not been having a great time in tutorials, but she managed to organise revision tutorials for me, which brought up my standard so that I did much better than I would otherwise have done in my finals. And I would also mention Peter Clark and Roy Stewart, who were both excellent tutors to whom I was sent outside my college, and they were very, very helpful. When I graduated, I went to a small firm in the city to do my articles, as they then were, and didn't particularly enjoy that because a lot of the time I was doing litigation, which wasn't for me. But what I did enjoy was the tax work that was coming into the firm, and nobody wanted to do it, so I was picking it all up, and there was some real law involved in that, and it was clear to me that I wanted to do a topic which involved a lot of law and a lot of technical law rather than a lot of face-to-face client work or litigation. So I picked up the tax work within the firm, but it was also fairly quickly evident that I couldn't do that on my own and I needed to be trained. So I moved to Freshfields, to the tax department there, in order to learn more about tax, and boy did I learn a lot about tax at Freshfields, because it was very intense and very demanding, but a wonderful way to learn. So I have to say that when I was first recruited to Oxford in 2001 as the Professor of Tax Law, it seemed to me that women had made it, that all the problems that I'd experienced in the past were behind us, gender-related problems, and that women around me were very impressive, the young women were doing well, and I thought that there was nothing more to be done. I could not have been more wrong. I had women coming to me from the faculty, from the staff, and also students who were clearly experiencing some difficulties and wanted to get together and wanted to network and wanted a way of doing that. I felt that as a professor in the law faculty who was also a woman, I had some kind of responsibility to do something about that. So one of the things we did was to set up OWL with Maureen and others to bring women together. And when we went out and talked to women across the world, in Hong Kong, for example, there was a similar demand, a similar requirement, and people were very enthusiastic about it, which meant that it was a no-brainer to set it up. We've managed to do a lot of networking, and we now have a really enthusiastic committee who I think will take things forward. And I'm particularly pleased that we have a student society now, a student Oxford Women in Law, because I think that that completes the picture. We've had a number of very good meetings on well-being, for example, on networking, and I think one of my favourites was on women in the judiciary, where we had a range of senior judges coming to talk about how they had become judges and how the ability to become a judge is opening up for people from a wide range of backgrounds. That was very, very eye-opening and I think very valuable. But in the future, I hope we will have a whole range of different meetings, and much of what we have meetings about will depend on what the demand is. So I think this will be led by the committee and led by the members. I think the glass ceiling has moved up for women, and so I doubt whether many women are having real problems in being recruited in the first place. They are being recruited in large numbers to a wide range of jobs, but I think the problem now is when they hit about 28 29, 30, and they realise that combining having a family with a career is going to be difficult. And even if they don't want to have a family at that point, they don't necessarily find that things are as obvious for them as they are for the men around them. And there are subtle methods of discriminating against them. None of this is conscious, I'm sure it isn't, but I think there are still problems that women are hitting. And because they hit them later, they come as a bit of a surprise. And it's almost worse because they weren't expecting them. And at that point, that's when they need support and advice. I would advise a current law student to consider not just becoming a solicitor or a barrister, but a wide range of careers. And when they do vacation placements and mini pupilages and so on, I would advise them to add in a role in a completely different sphere so that they can make a comparison and that they have something to consider beyond just the law. The law might be for them as a practitioner, but they may want to consider a civil service role or an in-house role, and I think they should consider those from the outset, or also as something to have as a seed in their mind as a future objective, even if they do go a more conventional route initially.